All right, welcome to the wonderful audience. I'm Shobhit Bhutani, Generative AI Product Marketing Lead here at VMware. I'm here with an esteemed panel today to discuss safely getting started on GenAI. Hello, Chris, Himanshu, and Cassie.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, Shobhit.
Wonderful. So I'm very, very thrilled today, particularly to bring on Cassie onto the speaker panel here. She's the very first AI specialist and advisor that I actually started following when I entered the ML journey myself a few years back. So really thrilled to have you here, Cassie. Let's kick this off with a quick round of introductions. I gave like a one-liner before. I work as the Generative AI Product Marketing Lead here at VMware. Been at VMware about 3 years or so, all in the ML space, and last year and the last couple of years led all the VMware Private AI launches over at Vegas with NVIDIA, Intel, IBM, etc. So really kind of exciting time to be in the ML space. Before that, I was in Dell for 15, almost 15 years, rack space, pure storage, so about 25 years in the tech industry. So kicking this off to our star speaker, Cassie, do you mind please taking a minute and kind of introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Shobhit. I'm Cassie Kozrkorov. Until recently, I was Google's chief decision scientist. I was there for 10 years. And I am all about the effectiveness of how we use data and how we use AI. It's very easy to hope that you're going to get great results, but there is technique, there is process, there is expertise, and most importantly, the quality of the partnerships and approaches matters. And so I spent a long time building that up at Google. And now I do a lot of advising and making sure that companies safely, like we said in this webinar, safely and effectively deploy their AI solutions.
Wonderful. Chris?
Yeah, thanks. So after your intro, Shobhit, it's making me feel a bit old here. So I've been working in technology now just over 35 years. I've worked with VMware products around the past 25 years, and been working at VMware for about 10 and a half, going on 11 years now, and have been leading the AI work for the past few. Certainly, helping to drive the release of Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA and other things that we'll be talking about today.
Wonderful. Himanshu?
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me, Shobhit. Hi, everybody. So I'm Himanshu Singh. I focus on product marketing for our compute and AI portfolio here at Broadcom. And so I've been with VMware by Broadcom for about 11 and a half, 12 years now. Been focused on a few different things in terms of cloud management, cloud infrastructure. Been in the AI space for about 5+ years now, with some of the initial offerings that we came out with, with NVIDIA jointly, etc. And then aside from that, I think just from a overall industry perspective, I've spent time, in the private cloud business with IBM before, and with, of course, Microsoft Azure, as well as, Azure was kind of getting started back in the day. So, a few years there as well with public cloud. So, really interesting to see how kind of AI is impacting a wide variety of enterprises with all sorts of use cases. Really, this kind of massive democratizing moment that has come for AI, where it's now accessible to everybody. The end users like just us, as well as enterprises and organizations in all sorts of different ways. So just a wonderful time to be talking about AI. So looking forward to our conversation now.
Absolutely. And what you just said, Himanshu, kind of led me off to think about the pivotal iPhone moment. Coding, Jensen, was the day ChatGPT really got released, right? And since then, it's obviously been an explosion in GenAI, as AI has been there for 30, 40, 50 years at this point, right? But really, GenAI has really opened enterprises' eyes on the phenomenal potential that AI always had, right? And so with all the stuff that's come together, the right GPUs, GPU capabilities, processing capabilities, it's really a very, very cool time to be in AI, right? So kicking this off with the first question to Cassie, as kind of our chief guest speaker here. Cassie, as chief data scientist at Google, you led the industry in very cutting edge work. Like there's lot of phenomenal people there, Andrew, NG, etc. That and yourself is part of that same group, right? Who were kind of the innovators in this space. What do you feel, right, now that this conversation has become much more mature? It's become, like we're just talking an iPhone moment, so to speak, right? What are the challenges that enterprises talk to you today about deploying GenAI?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in two different aspects. I've been interested in the pure data side of things, but then also in the leadership and decision-making side of things. And I feel like there was this beautiful era at 2010 to the release and popularity of ChatGPT, let's say, when there was a lot of focus on data and solving monolithic enterprise problems at scale. And now we have this new era of it's a blossoming, a user experience revolution almost, where you have people who haven't trained themselves in AI specifically, who are now capable of making use of AI tools and understanding that they are interacting with AI as AI. So in some sense, in the previous decade, when enterprises would launch their solutions, the idea was for the user not to know that they're interacting with AI. Whereas today, users do know and in fact expect solutions where they get to interact directly with things like chatbots. And so that means that there are some very interesting challenges on the decision side, new challenges. Challenges around saying what it means for the tools to work effectively and how we're going to test that performance. And something that has become very, very clear to me is that in so many ways, enterprise AI has never been a one-person job. But now the leadership of enterprise AI is also no longer a one-person job. Having a trusted partner that helps you shape your thoughts and understand the criteria that you're setting. When you as a leader are saying, this is the system I want to build, these are the solutions that I want to release out there, and this is what it means for it to work, you're making a fairly nuanced statement. And having partners who can help you work through that information is really, really important. So the decision-making and leadership aspect has become really interesting recently.
So as I kind of dig into that a little bit, right? As I think through this, there is when ChatGPT launched last year, there was a massive hype about, hey, let's get on GenAI, it will solve your world within 3 months, right? And then very quickly, right, as Chris mentioned to me in a dinner actually 10 days back, right, enterprise IT moves a lot slower than people think it's going to move, right? And that goes into a bunch of different challenges, right, about privacy, security, and stuff that enterprise IT takes extremely importantly, right? So is there anything more you think that kind of comes to mind on some of those things?
Well, look, when I say decision-making, I'm actually saying something else maybe.
Okay.
Inside that word decision-making is actually the word control. How do you control the results? How do you get the thing that you actually want? And it's more than just alignment. If you think about the various terms that we use for aspects of control, you can come up with more than 50 different terms and ways of seeing it, but it all comes back down to how do we get these systems to be truly useful to us? And to whom are they useful? When it's at enterprise scale, that is such a nuanced conversation. So it really is about that control aspect.
Fantastic. So the control aspect, right, is a kind of an interesting one. And as we went into this journey 5 years back or so, VMware, right, we've been talking to literally hundreds and thousands of customers at this point, which really kind of leads into some of the announcements we made last year, right? VMware Private AI. VMware Private AI is our architectural approach to privacy and GenAI. So with that, Chris, kind of shifting to you a little, right? You made that announcement. You've been kind of like our architect for the strategy. Even the name was coined by you. I remember that being part of some of those conversations. You announced that at Vegas last year, right? In our Explore event. How's the journey been so far in your conversations? And like, what's the most important thing that comes to your mind as you've been talking to customers?
Yeah, there's a lot there. It's been definitely exciting. We thought we were onto something with this approach, which essentially is saying, take a platform approach to artificial intelligence. The space is moving too quickly. The model that you think is best today is probably not going to be the model that you think is best next month, perhaps. So you need to set yourself up for the pace of change and innovation that's happening in AI today. So that was really key. And we wanted to launch a platform, right? We did that by partnering with NVIDIA, taking the best of our technologies and the best of their technologies, and really bringing this to customers to also allow them to take advantage of AI services in a way that's automated and allows them to get to business value really quickly, where they're effectively bringing the AI model to wherever they do business, so that they are not having to put their data in somebody else's proprietary format just to gain the benefits of AI. So all that has kind of led us to what was our product launch in May of this year. We've seen a number of customers embrace this approach, and it crosses a number of verticals, whether it's financial services, whether it's public sector, manufacturing. We're talking to organizations in healthcare, higher education, lots of different spaces, and it's really resonated with them. One thing that's I think has been our aha that we were not expecting is that organizations that have been running AI services on bare metal for many years, they're also part of our first wave of customers. And the reason for that is what they really struggle with is resource management at scale. That's a real challenge for them. They can't effectively maintain their posture of GPU inventory. Of course, AI is more than just a GPU. It's networks, it's memory, and so forth. And our technology that can do distributed resource management at scale, our DRS service, has been around for almost 20 years, and we continue to build on it. So it's a formidable technology lead that we have in this space for some of the real hard problems. And the fact that we're making AI so consumable is really what's led to this momentum that we've had with our platform approach, and it's been a pretty exciting time for us.
Chris, I love what you said there. This makes me think of another answer I want to give to Shobhit's earlier question, which is when I started in AI, there was this feeling like as an individual, you could kind of know what there is to know about AI. And then you would push the envelope as a researcher. So that it was a one-person game. And this feeling sort of persists even though it's so outdated. So this idea, now it feels very, very complicated to engineering teams because it feels to them like there's this expectation that they make these very big, very important choices, for example, which model architecture to use, which large language model, and make a choice that's going to be perennial, that they're not going to need to shift, and that they can wrap their heads around this. And that's very much the wrong approach because too much is changing too quickly. And it really is very much a team sport. And the teams are big. And I think that that's something that's really missing as an understanding in the industry. Like the idea that you're going to try to do all of it yourself, build all of it yourself. I don't want to say that's hopeless because there are companies, we see them, that are going out there and trying to start out the gate with several billion-dollar valuations, not to joke too much about that, but that's the kind of thing that you need if you truly want to do the whole thing yourself. Typically, what you want instead is to think about how to partner with folks who are going to let you be agile. So you don't need to actually make all the choices once and for all. We expect this whole area to change very much. Are you set up to change quickly with it? That's the big question.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And also, I mean, just getting back to your earlier point, Cassie, just on the business value, it's been one of the areas where I think there's been some trepidation is finding the use case that drives the right amount of business value. And this is where we've seen like the document summation and contact center style use cases are great because I can measure the gain in efficiencies in terms of the number of support tickets that my service agents are closing in a given week. And it becomes very easy then to drive the business case forward for some of these generative AI types of use cases.
Yeah, I have an opinion about some of this, and that's in many cases where businesses come to AI saying, we want AI for AI's sake, they're going to take a little longer to adopt than if they said, this is what our core business is, and we need it to be better. we need to automate something. And here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Because in some cases, sure, you don't need AI, but there's so many opportunities with AI. And one of the pieces of advice I give folks is go back to 5 years ago and think about things you wished you could automate that you thought weren't on the table. Chances are you might actually be able to look in that wish list and find something that you can do today. And then you're on the right AI journey because what you're measuring is something that's core to your business. It's something that you care about, and you understand the business value as you hit those goals.
Yeah, I think the measurability piece is a very key point. As as any organization, any enterprise is adopting something new, and it needs to be proven, and it needs to be valuable. There needs to be ROI and etc. And so, starting with use cases that are very measurable and deliver kind of clear business value, I think is very important as a consideration for sure.
And then here's an interesting thing that came to mind. I was actually listening to a YouTube video of yours today, Cassie, in which you mentioned something very interesting that actually is very relevant to what discussion we're having for a second. 1956, when AI/ML was first coined, right? You'd mentioned at that point, there was a 10-people team, and they expected to solve AI/ML in 1956, right?
They expected to solve something more than that, because to them, they were trying to solve is automating human behavior.
Right.
We
Right.
don't understand human behavior, so that's a little getting ahead of our skis.
Absolutely. We're not at the Terminator phase yet, right? To be able to automate human behavior. So, but I mean, just jokes apart, right? Like here we're sitting 70 years later, right? Really getting to the cusp of AI today, right? And I really like what you just said, right? About, the partnerships needed, the ability to have, very experienced advisors on your board, right? And by advisors, companies as well have a massive play, people like us. And one of the very interesting things that Chris was doing way before even ChatGPT, etc., became a big deal in the industry was his research teams, right? He's had massive research teams working on AI/ML for several years at this point, and so his teams were already building ecosystem partners, right, and signing agreements with. Literally, you can think of the big name. We actually have them on our list from obviously the big guys, NVIDIA, Intel, AMD's, all the the big names, all the different server platform partners, etc., like Dell, Lenovo, HPE, etc. You need all of those folks as well because you need a platform that's stable. You need to be able to deploy really quickly. And all of these different ecosystem partners that are AI specialists have a massive play in this, right? So, Himanshu, can you share a little bit more about some of these partnerships that we have?
Yeah, so to the partnership point, I think that's absolutely key, right? So there's no one vendor to do it all kind of thing. It's about making sure that we're leveraging the expertise that's available in the industry. This has been one of those things that I think if you look at VMware's history and then now as part of Broadcom as well, we always strive to create the broadest ecosystem possible, right? We always want to make sure that our customers are not feeling like they are kind of locked in, or they don't have enough choices available to them, that they're being forced into a certain path, right? We want to give them the best experience possible. At the same time, give them the flexibility of adopting and going in whichever direction that makes sense for their business, for their use cases, right? So in that same spirit, and then thanks to Chris and his team, we basically built out this huge ecosystem, and that keeps growing month by month in terms of the partnerships that we have, right? So whether it is at the OEM levels, at the ISP levels, at the SI levels, for example, or the MLOps providers, etc. I will talk about, I guess, the key technology partners that we have those offerings with, right? So which is the big one, of course, is NVIDIA, and then we also have fantastic partners both Intel as well as IBM. So The NVIDIA one is basically that kind of full stack, easy button solution at the end of the day, right? It's about making sure that you have the NVIDIA certified systems at the bottom. You got the NVIDIA software and the hardware. You got the VMware infrastructure with VMware Cloud Foundation full stack in there, and then all the components that come on top of it on layer by layer, all the way to your kind of MLOps options, your large language models, etc. Excuse me, and being able to kind of deploy that uh, in a very seamless way so that you have a solution that is well tested, well ratified, fully supported, and brings together kind of the best that both Broadcom and Nvidia have to offer. So that's the that's what we call the VMware Private AI Foundation with Nvidia. So that's kind of the number one solution, and that's in market. That's what Chris was talking about, that we went GA earlier in May this year. Okay. Excuse me.
Bless you.
The the other one is the partnership we announced last year was with Intel. So that's the VMware Private AI with Intel. Notice the word foundation is kind of missing, right? So in this case, what we have is we have a jointly validated stack with technical guidance, reference architecture, etc. That both Intel and kind of Broadcom have come together to kind of create, and that's available. That guidance is available for customers who are looking for something that is more of a bit of a DIY, compared to the NVIDIA option in this case. And the third one is the in VMware Private AI with IBM of partnership that we announced as well last year, and that brings the IBM Watson X offering, the technologies from which is typically only available in the public cloud space, to their on-premises environment. So customers now have this kind of additional choice if they, if they are they want to leverage Watson X as kind of the core technology to drive some of their AI initiatives and workloads. They can do that within their on-premises environment. So as we go forward, we continue to broaden this ecosystem. We continue to work with more and more providers. I wish we could share more right now, but we'll wait until Chris has has put his kind of John Hancock on the paper, and then we'll be able to have the next version of this and talk more about some very exciting new partnerships that are coming in the space as well.
Absolutely. And then VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA, like Himanshu, you just mentioned, right? That is the product that's generally available, right? What it does for customers today, right, is basically it helps customers with the easy button to GenAI, right? You get VMware Cloud Foundation, which provides the infrastructure layer. We get VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA Service. It's a slew of capabilities that Chris's team and the engineering team have designed. So basically, on top of VMware Cloud Foundation, you get an AI-ready capabilities that the teams have designed. And then finally, on the top layer is where NVIDIA AI Enterprise comes in, which NVIDIA Enterprise gives customers the ability to basically now pull down large language models, whether they're from Hugging Face or NVIDIA models as well, like NVIDIA models or any open source models for that matter that NVIDIA supports as part of the NVIDIA Enterprise subscription. And so that is the platform that we have generally available. Our SKU, our VMware Private AI Foundation with NVIDIA SKU in this platform gives capabilities like vector databases. It gives the ability to do VM templates, right? So this is a major feedback we get from admins, right? As they're trying to set up their infrastructure, they don't want to keep doing the same VMs on every single host very manually, right? So pressing that easy button, getting the capabilities to be able to spin up really quickly on top of the our infrastructure, and getting customers now ready for deployment of GenAI is really where the massive value out of this platform comes in, right? And then like Himanshu had mentioned, there's newer and newer capabilities that the team keeps releasing, right? So for example, last week we announced guided deployment, model store. These capabilities basically help in GenAI deployments, and then give better ways to kind of have a monitored, well-measured, and secure governed environment, right? So you can deploy large language models very, very quickly. Now, one thing interesting that I hear and read a lot about, right, is 10 years back when Kubernetes was first launched, phenomenal capabilities, kind of like a wild, wild west, right? You could pick up containers from anywhere, pick them up, and then just basically deploy on top of your infrastructure. To some extent, large language models are similarly in that space right now, right? Where we have a huge amounts of capability to just pick up a large language model and just deploy it in your infrastructure without any governance, right? So we, from the VMware side and as well as the NVIDIA side, are hugely dedicated towards providing secure and privacy inbuilt kind of features in our platform, right? So this is very closely related to kind of like what I was thinking about, Cassie, here, right? Is what's the future trends that you're noticing in the GenAI space, right? We talked a little bit about governance and privacy, etc. What's kind of like the new things you're seeing in this space?
Sure. Well, the two big ones, one is multimodality. And for those who aren't familiar with that concept, that means that you are working with different kinds of data. So sound and image/video and text, models that can handle all of this together. Now, that means you get more performance potentially and more interesting capabilities, but this can be harder to secure, more opportunities for issues to come in. Another kind of thing, speaking of things that could be tricky to secure, is agentic models and agentic workflows. So what are AI agents? This is the concept of taking a large language model and appending it to the ability to use a tool on a machine. So the simplest form might be something where you could attach it to your browser and have it look things up for you. Now, once you get the idea of one little Lego block like that, you can put together a whole lot into a whole team of AI agents. And so now you've got a complex agentic workflow. And at every point of additional complexity, you have another piece that you would need to secure more carefully. And so as I talk to my security expert friends, we talk about something that we call the LinkedIn test and how too many providers will fail the LinkedIn test. And this is a very simple one. So when you're planning to use a provider's AI models or AI tools, go to LinkedIn and simply look up the words, that the vendor name plus AI and security, and see how many profiles come up. Because security is something that's really important, but it is something that too many companies treat as a luxury. And so they're not hiring for it. So how can you expect a vendor to provide a secured solution if they actually don't have the team that can do that for you? So if you do want to use some of these beautiful models available on Hugging Face, made by people potentially who don't have the background in securing them, the way to do that would be, again, to have them served through another team that does take security seriously. And I know you guys, your team, definitely passes the LinkedIn AI security test. So essentially, yeah, we're seeing in the industry these really powerful applications, but the more power it has, the more it needs to be carefully secured and the more you do need to invest in doing it right.
And that really strikes a chord with me, Cassie, a lot, right? Because of some of the work that Chris has shared his team is doing, right? And some of the stuff we already announced last week as well, right? So, Chris, if you don't mind, if you can share some of those capabilities that we just announced, right? And that's coming as part of the future of VMware Private AI. And anything else you want to kind of share about the future in general, right? The direction you think VMware Private AI you're going to take towards?
Yeah, and I think it kind of dovetails into what Cassie just mentioned, which is one of the concerns organizations have had is I can't have my data scientists just pulling down any model from Hugging Face and putting it into production. And you alluded to it before. One of the things we announced last week was our model store, model gallery, and we took a very deliberate decision to base the back end of that on the open source container registry Harbor, which we thought we were the first to go in that direction. To us, it just made sense. Customers didn't want another tool; they just wanted to be able to use some of their existing constructs because it makes the integration easier for them. And then in taking that direction, it provided a lot of benefits to the customer. In addition to having a way for enterprise IT to download, scan, approve models, right, that can be moved into production, an easy framework for collaborating around these models. And then in addition to that, Shobhit and both Himanshu, you made the point around how I wanted to have all of this velocity around the platform, right? And having that ability to use all of these different types of partners and services. So one of the things we've done is we have support for native NVIDIA and GC to bring their NIMs into this registry. We have support for the Hugging Face CLI. So even your app devs and data scientists, they can use their tools of choice. Makes it really simple for them. Going forward, we'll have full OpenAI API compatibility as well. So again, you're getting all of this choice, but you're not getting locked in by us either. We're making sure that you have that seamless experience, and you can move, in whatever direction you want. Now, that all said, we feel that organizations are going to stay with us because we have best-in-class orchestration, best-in-class automation. We're taking this further with things like vGPU profiles and reservations. Because when you're trying to orchestrate across clusters of servers, you're going to have different requirements. Like I might need an A100 or an H100 with, say, I want to use maybe half the memory. Maybe I want to use 40 gigs of the memory. So being able to intelligently stack that using our profiles capabilities is going to take you pretty far. We're adding a data indexing and retrieval service and knowledge bases, so I can very easily start to collect data, feed them to models for retrieval augmented generation type architectures, which are certainly emerging and are quite popular. But using the data collection with a refresh interval to keep the data current, being able to use knowledge bases so I can start to segment and put access controls around the data that's getting fed to the model and be able to contextualize it, right? That all is going to help you with security and privacy. We introduced an agent builder service so you can use natural language to be able to create AI agents really quickly. And then finally, an area where I think we're really pushing the industry is that organizations have this pool of GPUs that they want to effectively manage, but you can't approach high availability in the traditional sense. I can't have idle GPUs just sitting in servers, right, waiting for a failover event. I want my data scientists using them. But the way I can do this is I can have those containers sitting in different classes of virtual machines that are preemptible. So now when I have a failure event, say for a production inference service, I can gracefully shut down some of those research-oriented workloads to free up GPU capacity for something that's more important. So that's something else that we're bringing to the product in the future. That's not too far away that we think is going to create even more value for customers. So there's a lot happening that I think we're really proud of. But the bottom line is we're being pragmatic, we're being partner-oriented, and we're making sure that customers, developers, data scientists have that native experience that they're looking for in terms of the APIs and CLIs that they're used to and expect to have.
And that's kind of really interesting, right? Is when we talk to admins, they're not interested in, or architects even for that matter, or even senior leaders, right? Is they're not interested in buying a whole bunch of new monitoring mechanisms. They want to use the same, VMware tools that they're very, used to using. They're easy to use, really, really. I mean, I get this direct feedback all the time, right, from friends and admins and family who are actually deeply into IT. Your stuff's easy to use, and guess what? The more stuff you can keep adding to your UIs, VMware, the better off you're going to be. And that's exactly the direction I've seen Chris's team kind of take us in the AI space as well, the services space as well, AI services space. So that's kind of really, really, really cool. Now, agent builder, right? We've heard so much about these new capabilities, right? Like I'm hearing there's going to be a future 5-6 years from now that every person is going to have literally 20, 30, 40 of these AI agents kind of doing different space things, right, for them. So that's why this capability is pretty exciting. When I first heard about it is from Chris. It's also very, very scary to some extent, right? Sometimes, right? Because you can talk about 10 billion potential agents at any point scouring and doing different things, right? If you think about world's population 5, even if we say 2 per person on the average, that's a very, very interesting future to think about, right? So, I mean, Cassie, like in your space as being a leader in this space, what do you worry about generative AI when you look at some of these things, right?
Well, I would say that one of the beautiful things about generative AI is that unlike your traditional AI, the space of things that can go right is much bigger. So what I mean by this is you can actually solve problems with multiple right answers.
Right.
If I say something like, provide a good customer support experience to my customer, there is more than one way to do that. There is more than one initial greeting. There is more than one path through the problem that still satisfies the customer. But as you increase the surface of things that can go right, you also increase the surface of things that can go wrong. And so it's going to be this very interesting balance in making sure that we keep investing as much as we can in applications where we get a lot more value from the good outcomes, and that the mistakes are well contained or less likely, less impactful, or more secured. And I feel like maybe the biggest threat to this is people taking for granted that artificial intelligence means intelligent and right every time. Instead, you have to build systems that expect that there will be the occasional mistake. And how do you design around that so that you have the safety nets that allow the mistake to occur, be handled safely, and not create any harm? So it's a slightly different model, because that model of there is only one right answer per problem, fairly straightforward to approach that, fairly straightforward to discover the mistake when the mistake has happened, that model is shifting in favor of this much more flexible, generalized, but also therefore more nuanced way of doing things.
And sometimes I think like
that we mentioned that, sorry,
go ahead, Himanshu.
but this idea of making sure that you're factoring in how do you find the mistakes that the model is going to make? How do I preempt that? I mean, we literally are having this conversation in our internal Google chat for the past couple of days. It's very interesting to see how the similar conversations are happening in multiple places, where kind of our teams are also kind of talking about those exact same things in terms of as we go forward, there are certain things that we need to kind of focus on, and one of those big ones, of course, as we go forward is going to be this area where you have to kind of be prepared and kind of architect your solutions with the keeping in mind that the model is going to make mistakes, and how do I identify those mistakes? How do I put checks and balances so that the final results that are coming out are robust, are trustworthy? And I think that's where some of that differentiation is going to come, as well as more and more folks have these models available, more vendors, and more people adopting them.
Yeah, I would say that it's often much brighter than people realize. The trick is that you have to take the problem seriously in the first place. So the more you have these inflated sci-fi type expectations and no partner to help you set more reasonable expectations, the more you just leave yourself open to not having done any of the work required to create safe and useful solutions. But once you start taking it seriously, it's not that bad, is what I'm trying to say. It's just pretty scary when people ignore that mistakes are possible.
Exactly right. I mean, it's a phenomenally powerful technology, right? To some extent, when I think about it, AI/ML is such a misnomer of a name, right? What if it was just called data optimization? Much more less sexier, for lack of better words, right? But reality, that's really what it is, right? Analytics and optimization. If you presented that to a general audience, right, then enterprise IT, I think, or anyone else for that matter, the Terminator expectations get reduced, and now you're talking about realistic scenarios, right? So
it's just math. That's what it is. It's math.
Exactly right. I mean, that's what
it's automation with data. That's what it is.
Exactly.
The data, automate stuff.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately, when it's wrong, it's confidently wrong.
Sure.
Yes.
I mean, we could have built in that little extra printout to screen of, hello, I'm an AI system, I make mistakes. That's maybe on all of us that we didn't educate.
All right, wonderful. So really exciting conversation. Thank you so much. First of all, Cassie, to yourself, I know it took a while. I had to push this out a couple of times as well. So really appreciate everyone here. Chris, Cassie, Himanshu, thank you so much for making this a fun conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Thank
So,
you.
Himanshu, do you mind just kind of, and I'll put that as part of the video when we release the video as well. If you don't mind, you can just tell us which places folks can go to for more information, and then we'll share some information here shortly as well on the screen.
Yeah. So a couple of things, right? I mean, one, check out and just learn more about VMware Private AI. It's super easy. Just go to vmware.com/AIML and we'll take you to the right place. You can learn a lot about what conversations we're trying to drive, what value we're trying to deliver, how we're orchestrating all these solutions. Of course, you can also go to NVIDIA site as well, and they have a lot more information about kind of the joint solution and some of the stuff that the NVIDIA AI Enterprise Suite is kind of delivering and those kind of things. And if possible later, Shobhit, let's put up some of those kind of QR codes as well, where we can, folks can go there and have access to our contact form. So if you want to, reach out to us, there's a contact form that you can kind of fill out and we will get in touch with you. There's also a way for you to kind of get access to some of the NVIDIA NIMs and actually, try it out in your own environment and just get a flavor of what's going on with those kind of NVIDIA interest microservices as well, right? So I think those should be kind of good next steps for you to kind of kick the tires, figure out if this is kind of the right direction for you or not.
Fantastic. And and we also had some really exciting sessions just last week, right? That Chris delivered, Himanshu, myself, and a very wonderful guest speaker from NVIDIA delivered as well. So we have a few of those sessions as well, and so we'll put up the live recordings, the webinar links, etc., as part of the whenever we release this video. So with that, I'm gonna now stop sharing. I assume the audience is out of time to actually just scan this barcodes, etc. So with that, once again, thank you so much to all this wonderful audience, and thank you so much, Chris, Cassie, and Himanshu. It's really wonderful talking to you guys.